Welcome to A Pathway to Compliance, a podcast where we talk to industry experts on various topics, a lot on AI and compliance. I'm your host, Sally Smazinski, and with me is Mark Fershteyn. He is the CEO of Mastering AI, something we all need to do, right? That organization provides consulting, training, and tools to become an AI-first organization. Mark's an advocate for helping non-technical professionals use AI to build products and automate work. You're an idea guy, huh, Mark?
Too many ideas, not enough hours.
So talk about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me. Really excited, especially based on the last conversation we had. But yeah, I mean, my journey. So idea guy, I think is a really good encapsulation of that. So I started my career in B2B tech sales, tried holding off on that my whole life. Everyone's like, you should go into sales. You'd be great at it. And I always pictured sales as, like the slick back, sleazy kind of car sales. And when I realized that that's not actually what it is, it's delivering value to people. And especially when you can blend something that I was very passionate about, which was tech, it made a lot of sense for me and I loved it. So I've been doing that for about 15 years now. The last 7 of which I started a company called Recapped, where we helped create this category of products that didn't exist. Essentially, we helped buyers collaborate with their sellers to create a better buying experience ultimately. But unfortunately, the company didn't grow as fast as we wanted it to, even though we went and raised $8 million and we had 30 plus employees, 7 figures. We ended up shutting the business down last month. And over the last 4 to 6 months, I've really started doing consulting and helping businesses do exactly what you talked about. And it really just came out of just little fun side projects that I post about on LinkedIn. And all of that really stemmed from, going back to kind of the thread of being the idea guy. I had this idea for Recapped. I didn't know how to write a line of code. I still don't know. All right. I don't have the brain for it. And I had to go and raise $8 million to build something that was in my mind. And when I saw AI about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, it completely changed the way I thought about things, because for the first time, someone like me who's non-technical can just talk to this magical alien technology and it can go and build things for you. All right. And so since then, I've just gone all in. I've built a new B2B SaaS product that I'm releasing next week. I've built 4 iOS apps. I've built hundreds of agents. I've helped spin up thousands of agents at this point for ourselves and customers. And it's just been all consuming. So that's the journey in a nutshell. But
so you wake up in the middle of the night and your brain's just firing, right?
Yeah. Well, at this point, I have so many projects. I've, for the first time in my life, not allowing myself to think of anything new. I'm like, nope, jot it down if I still care about it in a month. It's something actually real.
So, you're fairly new into AI then, right? And you state that AI is not a tool problem, but an adoption problem. And I love that, because it really is. And it's for us too. Radian was very late to the game to use it. We've been talking about governance for years. And, we work with the ISO standards for AI and all the other security privacy standards. So how do we overcome that? How do we overcome that it's not the tools we're using, it's how we adopt them?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I have a pretty controversial opinion on this, where I think we've already probably achieved AGI, sometime earlier this year. If the tools don't advance any more from where they are today, they are incredibly capable. I'm running my entire life out of them. The automations that we're able to do today, and this is the dumbest they'll ever be, are incredible. And so I don't think it's a tool problem. I think it is purely adoption and being able to use it, right? 99% of people, when they say they use AI, what they really mean is they talk to ChatGPT and they copy and paste a couple things in. Right. That is maybe scratching the surface of the 1% of what's possible.
Right.
And the easiest way of getting across that threshold is literally just using AI. All right. So if you're not sure how to use it, open up Claude, open up ChatGPT and say, hey, here's my role. Here's what I do on a daily basis. Here are the tasks that drain my energy. Here are the tasks that give me energy. Help me automate and take some steps. What are the top 3 things that I can do to streamline my day? And that gets you thinking about having AI as an asking partner and more of a doing partner, right? It could be an executive assistant for you. It could be a junior employee for you. It could be a senior employee for you, but you have to know how to do that. And the biggest thing is, just like anything else, is learning to use it. It's a skill, just like anything else. When the internet came around, we didn't know how to type and click on things.
Right.
We had to learn, and now it's second nature. So I think the exact same thing is going to happen with AI.
So one of the questions that first comes to mind when you say that, and AI runs your life, that's exciting. I'm starting to adopt AI more from the corporate side versus the personal side, but I take it personally because it saves me from doing all this research, which I go down rabbit holes in, right? So
Yep.
it accelerates that. But how, with regenerative AI, are you going to be able to protect yourself and the work that you're doing if you're using regenerative AI and not something that's maybe a closed agent?
Yeah, it's a very top of mind issue, especially for a lot of my enterprise and mid-market clients, because anything that touches client data, anything that's internal, you want to make sure you're doing it. And so there are various levels of security that you definitely need to implement. And I think of things as essentially like a pendulum when it comes to this. If it's just yourself and it's your travel plans and anything, and it gets out, it might be embarrassing, but it's no big deal. Right now, if it's your ISO data for a client and their potential 0 days in their platform or whatever it is, now you have a lot of big problems and you're going to be financially liable for those.
Right.
So the closer you are to the end, the more steps need to be taken in place. And that starts with internal governance of the company, the tooling, the rule sets, read, write, access. There's so many different levers in that. But you absolutely, if anything you're doing is sensitive, and I always tell my clients, assume that any conversation you're having with ChatGPT is going to end up on Google in 5 years.
Mhm.
You need to act accordingly.
Okay, that's really good advice. Although a lot of times we get excited and you put things in there and you go, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
So on a corporate perspective, what skills do leaders, old and new, right, need
Yeah.
to effectively, and I'll use the word supervise, AI assisted work?
Yeah. It's an excellent question. So first off, I don't think you can supervise if you don't know what the job actually is and if you don't know the capabilities. So the first thing you need to do is you don't have to become a true expert, but you need to become dangerous enough. Right. I couldn't go in and coach someone on how to, I don't know, paint a painting. I know nothing about painting. Right. So the first thing I want to do is take a couple classes and learn and get to a point where I may not be the greatest artist, but I know at least the fundamentals of it.
Okay.
And so that's how I would think about it first and foremost. If you don't have that, you can't train, and everything is just going to come through in the way that you present it to. So when I do consulting engagements, for example, for leadership teams, that's always my first advice is you can't teach what you don't know. So you have to know it first.
That's awesome. And it's like really big. Because we have these conversations all the time. It's, we talk about governance and how do we get the leadership to govern, but their fear is, I don't know what I'm governing,
Yeah.
right? And so you have to build your programs and your usage of AI thoughtfully,
Yes.
right? And responsibly, I guess. So,
Well,
okay.
if I may jump in there. So the, AI is also so scary because intimidating because it can do anything and everything. Right. And so when you think of that, it's really hard to think in abstract values like that. Whereas instead, one of the biggest things I always recommend for my clients is let's pick 1 to 3 use cases and let's really hone in on that and make sure that that's great. Because another point too is just because you have individuals using AI, that doesn't mean that institutions are actually going to get value from it. Right. I read this incredible article a couple months back where I learned that it took almost 30 years for companies to see productivity when electricity started being used in factories. Right? And so it's not just one of those things where you literally turn on the light bulb. You have to rebuild the factory or the business from the ground up from first principles.
And that's kind of part of what your master AI concept is, right? Is
Yes.
you're helping the organization automate what is today manual, but also accelerate, right?
Exactly.
Without, I don't know. So how does compliance and governance come into those things when you're looking at somebody who has nothing?
Yeah. Well, so the best way to eat an elephant, I think, is one bite at a time, right?
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
we go in with the right expectations, but this isn't going to be a 30-day project where we
Right.
go, right? This might take a year. This might take 2 years, depending on the organization. And if you have 5 people, sure, we could do that in, a couple weeks. But the first piece is really layering that foundation. So getting the right tools in place and getting the right governance policy in place. So acceptable use policies, et cetera. Being able to start with clear boundaries of what is red, yellow, green lights, what's blocked from the organization, and also being very honest, because just because you say it's blocked doesn't mean your employees aren't going to use it, right? Everyone's afraid of losing their jobs right now. Everyone's getting this kind of hysteria that if they don't adopt AI, they are going to be out of a job. So if you tell them they can't use AI, that's not going to stop them.
Right.
Because they're thinking about something that's bigger than just working at your company. So you have to take that into account, and you have to build the systems and the tools in place. And then after you start really honing those individual use cases, that's where I think you start learning and you start creating the playbooks across the organization, where you see something that works in engineering, you can apply that to sales, or marketing does something really great. Now we can make that organizational and at the institutional level, not at the individual level.
Right. I had a conversation yesterday with HR, and their company's widely adopting AI for process automation, but they can't use it because they have data privacy issues. They've got PII and other, very critical information. So
Yep.
they kind of feel left out. So I think we need to evolve into having tools that,
Yeah.
regulated areas can use.
Absolutely.
So what's the biggest misconception that executives have about delegating work to AI systems?
It's a really good question. So I think the biggest mistake that I see is not giving it enough context.
Mhm.
Right. So I think of AI essentially as an employee. It's a brand new employee. If I hired someone and week one I go, okay, go build me a system.
Mhm.
That just needed to book me meetings or something. It's not going to know who to target. It's not going to know what to say. It's not going to know why it should target those people, when to target those people, where to target those people. So the context and the context layer is incredibly important. So
Right.
you need to arm it with enough information to be dangerous and to know, but you don't want to overwhelm it, because then it also gives you bad results.
Right.
And that's a skill in itself, but it's one of the reasons why almost all of my engagements that I do with clients, we're building an AI operating system for them that takes their knowledge bases, it takes their context, it takes all of their tools and kind of combines it into a single pane of glass. Because then, and only then, I think, when you have the AI, then you can start really being productive with it and start having agents that actually understand your business, your goals, and your outcomes, and accomplishing those.
Interesting. So let's talk about that trust factor, right? So how can we realistically trust what we get out of AI if we can't explain how it got to that conclusion?
You need to verify every step of the way. There are lawyers that got in trouble because it created a fake precedent cases that didn't
Yes.
exist, right?
Yep.
Now, obviously, all of this is getting better by the day. Models hallucinate a lot less now, but some of the ways that you can do that is you don't want to have one agent that does everything. You want each individual agent to do one job and one job only. So you have an agent that creates the draft, that reviews the security, that is adversarial and puts it through the ringer, maybe another one that confirms it. So you want little stage gates every single
Okay.
time. And that way it helps. And then you still want a human in the middle, at the beginning, and at the end, verifying.
Okay.
I always think of it as like a Big Mac, right? You have the human on both sides and in the middle, and then AI does the work that it's much better at and faster at than you.
So that's really, I think that that's really valuable because, when we think about AI or when it gets explained to us or we try to explain it to somebody, you talk about it as a single entity, right? AI is a collective, but your breakdown is have the agents do individual pieces, don't have them do everything. I think
Yeah.
that's a really key area because that's going to make them more efficient, but also be able
Yeah.
to validate what's going on.
Well, and that's why I love this example of, thinking of AI essentially as employees. And so I have very specific, so in my business, I have very specific employees that do one thing only.
Mhm.
And so that means I have to give them the right context. I have to give them the right access to the tools. I have to give them the right, outcomes and examples of what good really looks like. And then I trust them to go and execute, and I give them feedback, and we make it better, right? Just like any junior employee. But the beautiful thing about that is, you hire a junior employee, they can maybe only do 2 or 3 jobs.
Right.
You can have an AI do 1,000 of these jobs, and it does it very hyper specifically.
Interesting. So trust, that's important. But in
Yeah.
my line of work, compliance is the name of the game. And we're running into, we're being presented during audits, for instance, evidence and we ask them to validate the evidence, and they can't because they don't quite know where it came from. So is that part of building out your systems, is to be able to have that traceability?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Absolutely.
And so how do we do that? I mean, are there, because like when you Google now and you get Gemini, it'll give you the little site where it got information from. So are we doing that internally as well? So what is it? Is it citing where it got that information from? Or because part of the value of AI is it's making analytical calculations that it would take us hours to do, and it does it in seconds.
Yep.
How do we know how it, is it going to tell us all those things that it got to get there?
So it depends, right? There's, in a nutshell, yes, if you position the systems to be that way, right? So I'll give you my personal example. So I built the B2B product that I'm talking about. I'm launching it, but it really started out as a passion project for myself because my life is in chaos. I am on, I have 7 calendars. I have 5 inboxes. It's really hard to keep track of everything. And so I simply wanted something that I could ask a question and it could have everything right there. And I wanted to be able to see those sources. So, hey, what is the next step with the deal with Sally? I wanted to pull my LinkedIn. I wanted to pull my calendar, my CRM, my Slack messages, my Teams, all of that. Give me a high level summary and then give me the sources that I can click into or the citations to say, this is what I want to do. And I think if you think of it through that lens, you can apply that exactly to this. Now, computations, you might have to, until you have really, really high confidence, or maybe never, you have to go through and actually do the math yourself. Right? Now, if it's judgment calls or if it's summarizing or if it's bringing things together, it's really good at that. So it depends on the role. I can't give you a blanket statement. There's so much variance, but anything, it should help you get 80% of the way there 2 to 10 times faster.
Yeah. Again, this is like a big hole for us, So I'm just trying to gather all the insight I can. So from accountability and expectations, just the traditional audits, and this is a huge conversation, maybe not necessarily for this podcast, but using AI in audits, right? Especially from a compliance perspective and a regulatory perspective. But how is AI changing or should be changing our expectations on the documentation? So ISO has this bad rap that it's all about documentation. Put it in a binder, put it on a shelf, and we're done. And I think we've moved on from that, but we still have that, people new to it kind of get that expectation. So how do we, is it just, it's not AI itself, is it just a personal change in our thought process and behavior that allows us to look at accountability and auditability differently?
It's a really great question. So my mind immediately goes to the way that I'm using AI for my audits when I bring consulting clients on, because the first thing before I diagnose any problem, I may not even be a good fit, is I want to understand what's actually going on in their business. And AI has been a really great at allowing me to spread the depth of, or go broader and go deeper. So for example, whereas before I could only ask the questions that I could ask, I have AI recommend potential use cases or gaps that they're running into. So for compliance and audit, this could be, potential gaps in their security or governance that they're not doing. And then I have it also, and then it can do a really great job of then capturing those details. So it spreads itself out, gets those tentacles in and captures that data. Now, of course, you need to verify it. And so that's something like the audits that I'm presenting to my clients are not anything that I could do by myself, because I'm having AI go in and run simulations and think through this and then present something that normally probably would have taken a team of 5 people to do, but it's myself and I'm able to charge for one person. Therefore, I deliver more value. And I think there's probably a lot of overlap there because when we were going through SOC 2, it was a very manual, tedious process. I imagine now, because it's, 3 years later, it's a lot of that could probably be automated and still deliver a better experience.
Yeah. And again, it's, the audit industry has not yet, I think, embraced AI, because you are dealing with very sensitive information. And that's where closed systems are really key, right?
Absolutely.
But to analyze things, to see patterns, we can't see those with the naked eye. So I see the value of it. We just don't know how far it's going to take us or how long it's going to take us to have our clients adopt it so that we can use it.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, I think some people, and I was guilty of this in the early days too, is because once you start using AI, you can go, oh, we use AI for everything, but you don't need to. Sometimes you need a deterministic, logic-driven path where A plus B equals C every single time. Whereas when you use AI, sometimes A plus C equals F. It makes it up every single time. And so having some parts of it be AI, and then the other parts still be the logic and the checks and the balances that we're used to, that's a really great first step.
So I don't want to be controversial here, but in our pre-talk, we had a conversation and you made a comment and I wrote it down. So I'm going to repeat it to you and see how we can work on that. So you said that humans are not good at writing code and that we need an agent-first development for creating AI agents. How do we get there?
I think long term, I'm incredibly optimistic about AI. I think it can, potentially, it's cliche, but help cure cancer and help us discover materials that we never did and help transform medicine and flight and who knows what. Getting there is going to be really, really rough.
Right.
And you can't make an omelet without breaking a couple eggs. And unfortunately, I think a lot of eggs are going to get broken. And I do believe that most code written by humans sucks. That's why we have 0 days. That's why we have all of these gaps. That's why there's bugs in literally every single software. It is going to take the better part of a decade, hopefully not as long, for all systems to be rewritten where it's agent first. And so it's agents writing it for agents or AI writing it for AI, protecting itself from other AI. And once something is found maybe in a different system, all systems can then implement a gap fixer for that. Right. Whereas right now, you can't do that. Right. And it's going to be really rough. And I think it's going to be really scary. I think we're going to have a lot of data breaches. I think we're going to have a lot of hacks. I think, because currently it is human defense against AI offense. And the humans are going to lose every single time, I think.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that statement. So kind of heavy.
Well, that's why I said, assume anything you put on your computer and in AI is going to be on Google because it just might.
Right. Yeah. And so, use with caution, but use with accountability.
Yes.
So, talk about, the evolution of AI, transparency and accountability. But since we all think that it's going to reshape how work is done and it's already doing that, what's maybe one principle, one thing that any organization should never compromise on when it comes to ensuring responsible AI?
It's a great question. I think the same business principles apply, right? You never want to do something that you wouldn't want your clients to find out that you did. If it's going to get you in trouble and you know it, you probably shouldn't do it. Right? And I don't think that pertains just to AI.
Right. But in a corporate setting, when you have leadership and they're trying to figure out, because your employees are already using it, right? And they're using it outside and they're trying to bring it inside. And if you don't have the guardrails already up for internal use, then they're using regenerative AI for their work. So when you start from the top and you create and communicate how you want the operations of the organization to use AI, is it just a communication? Is it training? What's something that all leadership absolutely not give on?
Yes, is the answer. Yeah. You need to be able to communicate it properly. You need to have clear expectations of what is acceptable and what not, and what will result in a fireable offense. You need to give them the tools to be able to do that. You need to give them the training. You need to be up to date on it yourself. Like, this is not a small task. It's called transformation for a reason.
Right.
This isn't just something you pick up on a holiday and, you feel better about it. If you don't adopt, though, younger upstart competitors will eat your lunch. Right. And so, I'm sorry, an asteroid went off and, dinosaurs are walking around not knowing about it. So you have to either adapt or it is what it is.
Right.
So there is no easy, I wish I I'd be retired on a yacht somewhere if I could just say, do this one thing and your company's safe. Like there's no easy answer. And I think it's only going to get more and more difficult as the years based on everything else we talked about. So
Right.
I don't know if that's the answer you want, but
No, it is. I mean, I don't think there's a silver bullet answer, right?
Yeah.
And part of it is, we for the years, digital transformation's been the buzzword, right?
Yeah.
And it's really now human transformation, because it is a very human thing that we have to go through to be comfortable, to adopt, to know what we're supposed to do. And, that's a difficult journey, especially for people at my point in my career, that I don't want all these new things again,
Change sucks.
I wrote my college thesis on a typewriter, for crying out loud. So I've evolved and I've gone through all of these technological changes and I've survived and I've gotten smarter and better.
Yeah.
But this is very transformative. And we probably thought that for the internet, and we probably thought that for, cloud services. But I'm excited and I'm also a little hesitant, right?
Yeah.
So-
It's scary. I mean,
Yeah.
Change sucks, but I think there's a lot of positives that's going to come out of this.
I do too.
It's just, sometimes we got to get forced to go to the gym, and whether we want to or not.
Right. And we believe in it because that's what our businesses do, right?
Exactly.
I mean, we're using AI. Maybe you're using it more than I am, but we're leveraging our knowledge of the governance of AI to help companies responsibly, use their
That's
AI.
amazing.
So it is, and it's a great capability, and I think it's a great skill set.
You hit on a really good point. I think, AI by itself, I think, is almost useless. It's domain knowledge and expertise plus the AI automation. That's really where that 1 + 1 = 20. And so if you don't have that first, which, you've spent, so much of your career building that expertise and the knowledge and being able to share that with customers, now you're just going to be able to do it at bigger scale and deliver better value ultimately.
I'll be better prepared.
Yeah, exactly.
We use AI to help build the readiness for these podcasts, but I find myself still going out and doing my own thing because I have to adapt to trusting the output versus just making sure that I know it's that control problem. And I'm working on it, and having this podcast has really helped me because I'm getting insight I never would have gotten otherwise.
Yeah. Now, again, I will say, because I'm launching my own podcast and I'm going through this as well. It's really tempting to just hand everything off to AI and do it, but then it loses that human element that makes it special in the first place, right? Because otherwise, if everything's prepared, why not just have the AI interview the person, right? So I would just, you're thinking about it in the right way from my perspective, but don't lose that human touch, right? That Sally kind of like X factor that it's really easy to get, to let it kind of take over. I've been so guilty of that myself. And
I never want to be in a position where somebody asks me, how did I get to that information? And my answer is, I don't know. And even the team that we have, if somebody does something for me and brings it to me, and then I'm asked about it, I need to know how they got it done. Even though I could have done it, I had them do it. And it's really important. And I think our team appreciates that because we verify, but we also give them the credit. So as we wind this down, what's the one thing, it doesn't have to be one, that totally excites you, Mark, that you really, whether it's AI or not, but you've had businesses, you've closed businesses, you've raised a lot of capital, you've got all these ideas. What's like one pinpointed thing, if you can, that is in your future?
So all of this, Mastering AI and all these projects and everything that I'm doing, it's all to fund this childhood dream of owning a game studio where I work on video games with my friends. I think part of what gets me really excited about AI is that we're going to create hyper personalization that was never possible before. So I think in the next few years, you're going to be able to sit down on Netflix and say, I'm in the mood for a thriller with Brad Pitt in space with the soundtrack of this, and this person is the villain. And some version of that will come back and say, great, here's a 30-minute TV show made for you, or a 2-hour movie. Right. And that may only appeal to, 20 people, but you're going to be able to have that. And so I think we're going to see a renaissance of creative people building things that are just for really small niche communities that before would never make sense because in order to build that would cost millions of dollars and you're only going to get thousands back. Now it doesn't matter. You spin something up in a weekend, you throw it out there. If 10 people use it, great. If nobody uses it, it doesn't matter. So that's really, really exciting to me.
So the infrastructure to do that is cost effective, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And for the first time, non-technical people could create.
It's amazing. I'm the pseudo technical, right? Because I'm a CISSP, so people think I'm all this network and technical. And I joke about, you can put me in a data center with a whole bunch of boxes and computers, and I can unpack them and I can rack and stack them. Wow. Just don't expect them to work and turn them on, because I wouldn't have any clue how to do that. So it's the misconception of what the certification does, right? And the population of people who have it. So I'm a non-technical CISSP.
That's funny.
I let the secret out. But anyway.
I won't tell anyone.
All right, thanks. Well, this has been great. I just really enjoyed meeting you and having these conversations. And I'm sure that we'll continue conversations in other formats. But appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Yeah, Sally, this was fantastic. Thank you so much. Love what you guys are doing, and it is much needed. So I appreciate this conversation.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you on the next podcast.